baller, ballers, and a big fucking Merry Christmas to all of you guys. I am joined by this guy who is going to celebrate Christmas with me by embarrassing me on his channel with a lore quiz. A lore quiz, whereas I'm going to hit him with some PvE questions to bring in the festivities. Are you ready, Nobbler?
Bring it.
Are you feeling good?
Bring it. I know everything there is to know.
Do you know everything you need to know? I kept it reasonably simple as we could go deep. We could go very deep. I don't want to go that deep on you. You know what I mean? I want to keep it special for Christmas. All right. Okay, so PvE, when we're DPSing, we want to squeeze out as much damage as humanly possible. That sometimes means that we play specs differently than how Blizzard intended them to be played. DKs are the masters of this. Death Knights over the years have had like 10 different styles of play that deviates from the ordinary playstyle. Can you name 3 of them?
3 of them?
3 out of 10? Easy.
I was thinking to myself, I know maybe 1 because of the soloing scene. Like, I know how certain Death Knights go blood and then take as much damage as they could so that they could maximum DPS output. Oh god, I hope I'm in the ballpark here.
Nope, not at all. Let's say, and they always give these new styles of play DK styles names. So a Frost DK might play in a style called Master Simple.
Okay.
Does that mean anything to you?
Well, my knowledge of the DKs, like how you want to call those, I know one of them, which is called grab your face and roll over the keyboard, which is apparently the most used spec when it comes to DKs.
No world first with that attitude, son.
Then there is the one where they simply go AFK and everything falls over. It's a very rare strat, but
What's it
they
called,
like
that
to...
one? What's the DK name they've attributed to that one?
That is the where the fork is the Death Knight at.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. And that's to play into the whole fantasy thing that they're going on, right? Because they want to relive the fantasy, and Death Knights are, of course, undead creatures that can't really be killed anymore. So they just stand there and they be like, yep, and then everything just falls over because they get so terrified.
So you would say DKs are always the top DPS?
Pretty much. I would say pretty much,
By
yeah.
being AFK?
By being AFK. Well, it is, of course, unless there's anything else in the raid group besides a DK.
Oh.
Then it's a different situation. But if you take like 40 DKs into a raid, then absolutely they are top DPS.
Absolutely. So that's 2. We have the AFK, massive AFK DK, the I don't give a fuck DK. And what would the third one be?
The third one would be similar to the whole fantasy thing. But this one is actually tryharding, right?
Oh,
He's going around and he sees his teammates being killed and he's like, I can res you mid-combat. So this one is called Behold the Vengeance of the Grave.
Oh, like a protector spec then?
No, not at all.
Oh.
Like, I will use my enemies, you will use their fallen bodies and just toss them at the enemy that I try to fight.
Oh, I see, like a corpse explosion. But with
There
their
you go.
friends.
There you go. And
I
at the end of
see.
the raid, like everybody's dead and nobody gets any loot. But the Death Knight's still standing there and he's like, yeah, I killed something.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the ones you didn't mention was Fester Blight. What do you think Fester Blight is?
Vesterblight reminds me of the boss in ICC with Professor Puterside. So
Yeah.
I imagine that that's a Death Knight that releases as much gas as he can, both in-game and on TeamSpeak or whatever system you're using, where they just blow it out their ass, so to say, and they just fill up the room with gas, and that's the spec.
So it's like a huge AoE spec then?
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
constant AoE damage?
The entire room fills up with gas. Everybody's choking now. They don't know what to do anymore. But again, the Death Knight survives, and that's the whole point.
Yeah, well, they can't be killed.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, well, you nailed that, actually. I was surprised.
Thank you.
Well, let's go a little bit simple then. We've all used this spell, so how does it work? How does Taunt work?
How does Taunt work? As in-game, how it works?
Yeah, when you press the Taunt button, what is it actually doing?
That is very simple. You run up to the boss, like a gnome warrior, you gotta imagine here, with the little spike shield and a weapon.
Yep.
And they go like, you motherless ogre! And then the boss is like, what? And then they're standing there and they get hit and they're all happy. This was mostly used back in Classic during Blackwing Lair, the Velastros fights, where you had to sacrifice yourself as a warrior in order to give your team enough time. They would just constantly scream at the dragon, that all kinds of nasty words that I don't want to put on the YouTube, but that's actually how it works. Like they scream.
So they would be like spamming Taunt essentially on Veilstress.
No, you gotta rotate that.
You got to rotate the Taunt of Veil Stress.
Come on now, you gotta coordinate that. You had your own little channel with all the tanks in there that were rotating it. But eventually you die because there was no way they were gonna keep up.
Burning
because you also
adrenaline,
had
of
to
course.
debuff. But you gotta rotate that, yeah. But if you go into an LFR situation, like LFR is beautiful. If you're a tank in LFR, just hit that button constantly. Like there's no way you could lose threat. There's no way that something could go wrong. You just want to spam that taunt button.
So once you taunt, you can't lose aggro. Like it lasts forever. Unless somebody else taunts.
You would think that, but the way that it works, they got like a little add-on for it. And then you can see like your threat meter. You will be put up on the top. And then you gotta generate aggro. And if you generate enough aggro compared to the DPS from that moment on, the moment that you use taunt, you will keep aggro. But if you don't, if you just stand there, you'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna taunt again.
Do you even need to attack?
Hopefully.
Does it make any difference to your attacks? Or is it just that you've taunted and that's it?
It puts you on the top of the priority list for the aggro. So basically, you gotta imagine like if you're at 0 aggro and everybody's already 100%, taunting it puts you at 200%, and then you gotta
200%. That's cool.
Yeah, just a number. Like it could be 150, it could be 250.
Yeah,
but it puts you up there, right? It puts you immediately in the threat range. And if you're able to reach 100% again, then you'll be on top.
Oh, well, that brings me on to the next thing then. So, as you know, taunt works with threat. So, but how does threat work? Like, if I'm DPSing, how do I pull aggro?
You pull aggro by simply creating more threat than the tank does.
Just going over? Like, if he's at 100%, like you said, and I went to like 101, I would take aggro?
Pretty much. Like 101 might be a little bit iffy, but if you go 110, like your warning will go up, like you got aggro, and that's the moment you want to hit that taunt button and be like, hey, you get back here.
So is that the same for everybody, or does it work differently for casters or melee or what?
The DPS definitely has a higher chance to get above that because their generation threat is higher. But healers are also up there. I remember in a fight where I was actually a tank, but I was healing myself. That was during Mr. Pandaria. I was able to pull threat out of the other tank because I was healing so much. That was way back when.
Well, you were balanced, of course.
Of course. Yeah. Like, there was no need for a nerf later on. Oh, those were the glory days, man.
No, not at all. Okay, interesting. Well, let's talk about cooldowns then. As we're talking about threat and casters and stuff like that. Obviously, the given consensus is that it's better to spread your buffs out and use them throughout the whole fight, so you're always quite powerful. But some people think you should like use all your cooldowns at once, and then you'll be not powerful for quite a long time. So, what do you think about that? Where do you stand?
Well, this is of course a very tricky issue in today's current society, but I think it depends on the fight, and it depends on what kind of situation are you in. Does the boss need to be burned down real quick? Then of course you want to pop all your cooldowns, pop your rings, pop heroism, bloodlust for your horde fans out there, and go. But if you do that at the start and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna pop my cooldowns, pew, 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 pew. Good luck keeping threat over that as a tank.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
you gotta spam that ton button at that point.
Yeah.
So you're dead. And
but if the fight's like a steady burn, like the Butcher, where we're trying to, we've got just a straight DPS race all the way through it. It's better to like spread cooldowns out, so you're always doing a lot of more damage than, just the one period of time.
I would say that it depends on your class. Like, if you're a paladin, then your whole kit is surrounding about popping your hammer and getting that out, but they will also refresh in the 2 minutes period. But if your class is like spread out with your cooldowns, so you can constantly keep that DPS up at a certain point, then absolutely you want to spread out your cooldowns instead of going nuts like I'm a god. Yeah. And then for 5 minutes you're nothing anymore. That's overall it would be more beneficial to the raid and the fight to be consistent than to have the spikes in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, makes perfect sense to me.
Right.
Well, speaking of that, then, I mean, you brought up the rings. What does the legendary ring do? The DPS one.
Ooh.
I mean, everybody's got one pretty much. I mean, there's very few people who've been playing all of Wilds of Draenor who don't have one.
Right.
Do you have one?
I have one.
You have one? Oh.
And I remember that somebody boosted me through the Archmon fight for the Moose Mount, and they told me get the macro off because I had it macroed. As far as I remember, when one person activates the ring, all of them go on, and then you pool like your DPS together, and then when it explodes, you do like the AoE damage of the amount of damage you did in the period at the time was activated.
So everyone explodes?
DPS.
Just the DPS. So the DPS one activates all the DPS rings.
Yeah,
Right, okay. And then they all the DPS explode, and the tank ones do the tanks, and the healers do the healers.
Exactly, because they all have the different... I imagine that healers won't be doing a DPS amount, they will be doing a healing amount. Perhaps that healing and tank also goes off at the same time, but they will have different stats, like healing might do AoE healing, tank might do damage mitigation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Definitely. Okay, it's a pretty big explosion.
That is a very beautiful explosion. That's why you want to coordinate it so that everybody goes off at the same time.
Well, as you said, you're a paladin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what kind of damage does Final Verdict do?
Holy.
And why? Is that good? Bad?
That is actually good because, little known fact, way back when, in Blackwing Lair, you had different bosses with different resistance, like Shadow and Nature and Arcane. And that flows into today's society, whereas you have a different sort of damage you can do. You could do just your standard melee damage, you could do your poison damage, but also your holy damage, which is in a whole different category of resisted, of deflected. Right. And I believe it can't be parried or blocked, but you don't have to quote me on that one.
I won't quote you on that one, I won't. Are there any bosses you found particularly resistant to holy damage?
Narus. Like Naru is definitely up there. I have never found a boss that is particularly resistant to holy damage, except the ones that take over the ones. I remember one, and damn, there was one that actually copied what you used on them.
Oh.
That was in a quest line during the Spires of Arak, where you enter the Shadow Realm. You fight like these copy monsters, and whatever attack you use, they become resistant to.
Oh. So...
And the freaking Valkyr in the tournament. Although I don't know if that's holy or just light-based. Could also be light-based. Like I remember those Valkyr that you had to fight in the tournament in Ice Crown. You could pick up orbs, and if you pick up the light orb, you would do more damage to the dark one, and pick up the dark orbs, you do more damage to the light one.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think that they counted...
The light banes, yeah?
Yeah. But I don't think they counted holy in that equation.
No, maybe not. But I can't remember myself, so potentially they did do that. I mean, you brought us on to mechanics. I mean, you obviously have raided some bosses, even if it's been boosted. You've been and seen them. And a big part of raiding is learning your mechanics, because Blizzard tends to repeat mechanics when they're making new bosses. So what was a main mechanic in the past is like, you know, it's an average mechanic in the future. Mm-hmm. So one of those that was used throughout the game regularly was Wing Buffet. What is Wing Buffet?
I have no idea what Wing Buffet is. I always said Wing Buffet, not buffet. It's like, okay. Oh yeah, we're gonna eat some wings tonight.
So what's Wing Buffet then?
I remember that the big birdie in Skyreach did Wing Buffet, and you had to hide behind a pillar, because if you didn't, then you would get increased damage. Right. So I'm gonna say that it's a debuff placed if you don't avoid it or mitigate it, that increases your damage taken, similar to Sunderstrike, for example, from Warriors.
Right, I mean... So, it's aimed at the tank then? And it debuffs them to take more damage? Or does it just hit everybody? Is it like an AoE?
Depends on the fight. Like in Skyreach, it was just an AoE and everybody had to hide. So I'd imagine that it just depends on the fight. They could also do it on the tank itself. I remember a couple of fights where the tanks actually had to switch it around, because then they would be debuffed. And it's like, oh my god, I'm getting more damage. Please taunt.
Yeah.
Why are you not taunting? And we're dead.
So Wing Buffet is like a big thing for taunt swaps.
The similarity to it, yeah. Like, I'm gonna say that Wing Buffet is the AoE version. You also have like the single target version.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something you gotta take into account when you're tank, yeah.
Okay. And was there any raid bosses that used it? I mean, you mentioned a couple there, but I'd say probably about 12 bosses used it. You know any?
The birdie in Throne of Thunder. Don't ask me what it's named. It's the one where you have to fly up and break the X. I believe he also did some circly thing.
Chikon?
Yeah, that one. There isn't much of a story behind it, so I don't know the name.
Oh, I see. There's no lore behind the birdie.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm sure that there's lore. Somebody gonna correct me on it. Is there anybody else that I remember? There was there Anzu this tier? There was something with the Eye of Anzu that you had to debuff. There were the bombs.
Yes, definitely. Okay.
And then you had, okay, go on,
yeah, that was pretty good. You nailed a couple of those there.
Yes.
I sent you a visual aid.
Mm-hmm.
I say visual aid. I'd like you to open that now. Now, this is something that's taken. This is a strategy that was used on pretty much every single boss that could do this ability. Can you name which boss this is?
Okay.
I've made it very simple, but it was an ability that used to kill many, many, many people, but everybody has dealt with this boss. Pretty much, there's nobody who plays World of Warcraft who hasn't dealt with this boss. Can you tell me what's happening there?
So what I see here, right? There are 2 areas that are safe. That is on the 2 corners, and the boss is moving in a direction. So I'm gonna say that this is either a charge or a moment where you have to move the boss out of the zone.
You move the boss?
Well, he is moving, like he's ready to go somewhere. So I would say that he's like charging there because everybody, or she, because everybody's got to move out of the way. The first thing that comes to mind is again Trial of the Crusader, where the big Yeti takes a target and charges towards it, and you got to move out of the way.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
But a general one?
Yeah, something that maybe, I don't know, maybe a lot of people have done Trial of the Crusader, I could be wrong, and they've all dealt with that Yeti. But this one in particular was so well done that they actually remade this boss in order to be done again.
This boss has been remade in order to do it again. And this is, we're speaking about Warlords of Draenor, yeah?
No.
Not Warlords of Draenor, okay.
Okay, I'll give you another clue. This boss existed in Vanilla and in Cataclysm.
Ragnaros. No, that can't be Ragnaros. Ragnaros doesn't move away, but that's the first one. Then we have Nefarian, but Nefarian didn't have a save zone like that. I'm just trying to remember which bosses we've done from Classic and Cataclysm. Which one also did come back?
It was also in Wrath of the Lich King.
3 times!
It was remade 3 times.
Onyxia! Oh, of course! No. No, it's not Onyxia, but she was remade 3 times.
She was.
I got no clue, man.
Okay, that's fine.
But so, I mean, I am gonna put my money on something.
Okay.
I am gonna say a boss that was remade 3 times, even though he was never in Classic. I'm gonna say Kill for Sunstrider. That is the boss that is right there, that you're gonna drag through it.
And what ability was he doing, do you know? That made everybody had to split off into 2 sides like that as you charged
Flame
through
Wall.
the middle. Flame Wall.
Absolutely, Flame Wall. Like, you remember the Phoenix that he had, right?
Yes, and they attacked the eggs, of course.
Exactly, but if you didn't attack it, this Phoenix would just go vroom, straight
yeah, you had to kill the Phoenix. Yeah. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, well done. You actually nailed that. I was pretty surprised.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful about it. Your headset is picking up, so you gotta keep your head steady.
Well, that is the end of my questions.
Are we done?
Yes, that is the end of my questions, as my headset starts to annoy everybody. You nailed that. You did really well.
I did?
You did. You did super well. I'm totally surprised. And I think everybody will be enjoying their Christmas even more, having known how much you own that.
I can't wait to see the answers below and be like, yep, I knew nothing.
Everybody have a Merry, Merry Christmas. Please go check out Nobbel's channel, where you'll see a video of me answering lore questions with equal skill.
It's amazing.
Bye, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
All done.